Hello and welcome all. So today I would like to complete our course about the Shara gambit, and many of you are asking me always the same question. If all the gambits that you're showing us are so great, so please also explain us how to play against gambits and how to contradict the gambit lines. Not always all these gambit lines are so strong which lead to completely winning position. And also in Shara gambit, sometimes, of course, we have strong players who are playing very successfully against such a gambit lines which I showed you. And just I would like to introduce you with one game which played by one of the greatest chess players in history, Garry Kasparov, in his simultaneous exhibition in 1999 against Jan Netzer. And this game started also with Shara gambit after d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3. Netzer decided to surprise Garry with Shara gaining gambit line after c takes d5 and c takes d4. First of all, already we pay attention that Garry is avoiding any complication which happen after queen takes d4, knight c6 and queen d1, and plays immediately queen a4 check, forcing black to play bishop d7, queen takes d4, e takes d5, queen takes d5 and knight c6, and we are reaching the standard classical position very soon, which we already studied for 2 lessons. Knight f3, knight f6, queen d1 and bishop c5, e3, queen e7 and bishop e2. It's funny enough that even Garry Kasparov has no any other lines but this main classical line, which most popular. Indeed, he is playing with white pieces and he understands very good what problems white could face in case they playing wrongly, and according to our best setup, white has to castle his king to the king side, so that's why it's so important to play bishop e2 and be ready to complete the short castling. Long castling, and Garry plays short castling. g5. Up to now everything the same, like we studied. So white, of course, could play something like bishop d2 or queen b3. Of course, knight takes g5 is very dangerous because this would open black the g file. After knight takes g5 and rook g8, black's attack becomes very serious. Knight f3 will be met by bishop h3, and white already in almost losing situation. So you see, in just in 2 moves, white's position could be ruined very fast. So knight takes g5 definitely is a clear mistake. What is the main point? Of course, already we saw this position before, and I said that one of the best continuation for white is a counterattack. So instead, keep the material advantage. Let's say like after a3 or queen c2 or whatever, white immediately opens up black's queen side after b2, b4. The main idea of this move not just to sacrifice the pawn for open file b, which is also quite serious advantage for white in that case. But also white's bishop could go to b2, and black's a1 h8 diagonal is quite weak. So set to the g5 move, white is looking for more targets, gaining more time. At the same time, b4 move helps white to get I would say to distract the black's bishop from this a7 g1 diagonal. So as I said before, in that position I analyzed that black could even try playing move like g4. Indeed, instead, the most obvious b takes c5, which we examined in our previous lecture, white simply could react with move like knight d4, continues a similar strategy like we will see right now in the Kasparov's line. So g4 move is interesting, but probably not so easy to, in that case, to support the black's attack, in case of course white is playing right way. So Gary's opponent decided to accept the sacrifice. He played bishop takes b4. Now white has a few options. First of all, we have to pay attention that knight on c3 is under attack. So sometime white is playing bishop b2, also protecting the knight on c3, also ready to bring the rook to c1 and to start the direct attack over the black's king. Despite that fact that bishop b2 is the most natural continuation, Gary chose to play queen c2. First of all, the queen is out of the rook's x-ray, so black also cannot play bishop f5 anymore, so pay attention, the queen takes control looking at f5 square. So g4 in that case is almost forced, so black has to attack white's knight on f3, and white plays knight d4. Knight takes d4. Black is trying to use tricks. Right now, it looks extremely dangerous for black to play such a move. Knight takes d4. But white has no time for jumping with his knight anywhere, since after a move like knight d5 check or knight b5, black intermediate move knight takes c2, and unfortunately white, instead of winning, just find himself after not so difficult calculation with the two pieces down. Bishop takes e7. So knight d5 is not possible. Gary plays e takes d4. Pay your attention that bishop on e2 somehow could become quite hanging, but not immediately. So black has no time to capture on c3 with the idea queen takes c3, queen takes c2, because queen takes c3 is coming with a check. So black has to spend more time and to play with his king before capturing the bishop on e2, and that of course would allow white to find the right way how to continue his queenside attack. So after e takes d4, black is choosing to keep the bishop threat, bishop takes c3, and plays first king b8. From many points, quite strong move. Black is also intending maybe to bring the rook to c8. Bishop takes c3, additional threat. Maybe black with the next move is planning to bring his bishop to c6, attacking white's pawn on g2. I would say black's position, black is looking quite comfortable here. Indeed, Gary is playing with white, and he's not allowing, of course, black to complete all his ideas. Bishop f4 check. So white is to move, and white is fighting for the initiative. Pay attention, already we have the materially equal position. Even after king a8 and knight b5, another strong move played by Gary, white is ready to sacrifice the pawn on d4. Bishop takes b5 and bishop takes b5. Rook takes d4. Funny enough, just a few moves ago, we had a similar position when black had material disadvantage. So black had a pawn down for initiative. Now everything completely changed. Now black is having extra pawn, but his king side extremely weak. White is having two powerful bishops in open position, and also black's king is feeling not so safe anymore on the queen side. After bishop e3 and rook d8, white just complete his development by rook a to c1. Suddenly, black finds himself in quite difficult situation. So white is intending to attack after queen a4. Pay attention that it was not possible to play immediately queen a4, since bishop c5 covers all the problems over the a7 g1 diagonal. So that's why important to play rook c1 to take more control over the c5 square. Now white is intending queen a4 already. Bishop d6. Queen a4. White is coming with one more piece into attack. Bishop b8, only chance to cover the a7 square. Pay attention that moves like a6 is losing immediately after bishop takes e6. By this simple sacrifice, white is completely destroying black's pawn structure, and b takes, queen takes, king b8, rook b1 check. Black would find himself in completely losing position. So let's back. So bishop b8 is looks like only continuation. By the way, black is also intending to start some counterplay. Indeed, if we look at the position, that we would realize very soon that when white's attack is going to develop it very simple, black's counterplay on the king side is stuck, completely stuck. White's bishop are controlling the full board. And not a big surprise that Gary, in just a few moves, finishing the game in a very elegant way. Rook f to e1. Pay attention. This is a typical move of Super Grandmaster. Gary is coming with all his pieces. So rook is coming to the open file. Already white is intending bishop takes a7 move. Queen on e7, unprotected of course. Queen d6, g3, h5. Black is trying to start his counterattack on the king side, but too late. Gary is just smashing black's position in just 3 moves. Can you imagine? This game is finished in just 3 moves. Let's understand how. And if you can find out the next Gary's move. Rook c6 is a brilliant shot. It's not just attacking the black's queen. The main problem is that black cannot accept this sacrifice. After b takes c6 and bishop takes c6, black king is going to be mated in the corner of the board. So black's queen is forced to move somewhere, but where to move? After queen e5, white cannot move immediately his bishop because e1 rook is hanging. But Gary prepared the second brilliant sacrifice. Look at that move. Rook a6. Intending rook takes a7 check, and black absolutely hopeless against this threat. Once again, b takes a6 will be met by bishop c6 checkmate. So nice checkmating setup. How else black could lock this diagonal? After rook d4, move which played by Gary's opponent, Gary simply captured. Now what black can do? After queen takes, bishop takes, and b takes a6, white is not even capturing the knight on f6, which is of course winning, but simply plays bishop c6 with a check and mate. So after move 27, queen takes d4, black immediately resigned. So what can we say? What can we learn from this great game? That in the gambit line, not always so great to keep your material advantage. So much better just to sacrifice back your material pawn and even 2 pawns like in that situation, and to get back the initiative, to win time for starting our own counterattack. In that case, black's pawns g4 and h5 were quite active in the opening, but after white completely destroyed black's king side with immediate threats and aiming all the time a7, b7 squares, and black's king was all the time under threats of white's bishop. So this g5 and h5 pawns are mostly like a Piper tiger, but not a real attack. Okay, I would like to show you just one more idea on how to play against the Shara gambit. And one more game, also played by quite top player, Grandmaster Kirill Georgiev, played against Milos Jovcic in the Yugoslavian Teen Championship in 1995. And also that game started with surprising Shara gambit. d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, c5, c takes d5, and c takes d4. And even here, Kirill Georgiev decided to avoid any complications and played immediately queen a4 check, bishop d7, queen takes d4, e takes d5, and more or less we are reaching the same classical position which we just already looked for last 2 lessons. Knight f6, queen d1 and bishop c5, e3, queen e7. For the first time, Kirill Georgiev decided not to follow Garry Kasparov's advice, not to play bishop e2, like in the classical situation we studied, but used quite interesting plan. And this plan you have to pay attention when playing with black this position, and also if you play with white, that this additional plan could be also quite interesting. a3, white takes control over the b4 square, but white's main idea is not to play immediately b4, but to bring the queen to c2 and to avoid black from playing knight b4. After long castling, the most natural, of course, continuation, queen c2, white is immediately getting away his king from the eye of rook on d8. Black is playing prophylactic move, king b8. And white is just completing his development, bishop e2, keeping in mind maybe to play short castling, maybe not. So black is reacting very classical way. G5, B4, G4, knight D2. It looks a bit dangerous after bishop D6 to castle on the short side, because all black pieces already looking toward it. So instead going for the short castling, white is discovering here quite new opportunity. First of all, white played knight c4, and after bishop c7, bishop b2. Interesting that before moving his king to the long castling or short castling, so white is just allowing black to start his counterattack. And after rook h to g8, white suddenly played long castling, completely destroying black's plan to smash white's king side. So it's no targets anymore there. White is even aiming quite seriously black's position in the center, and having the extra pawn, we are not so easy could find any serious compensation for that sacrificed pawn. So you can say, of course, black maybe not played so well. Maybe much more accurate was to play something like bishop c8 and prevent white's king from castling on the long side. Indeed, even in that case, white, let's say, could push the pawn after b5, then a4, and maybe bishop a3, and still, white's king is quite okay placed in the center. Not so easy for black to create any serious threats when white is already ready to push the pawns a4 and 5, and then b6, destroying black's position on the queen side. In that case, a game would become very, very sharp. No question about it. Black is still keeping some compensation, but I guess that white's chances are slightly better even here. Indeed, after bishop b2, rook g8, that's what happened in the game, and long castling, we can forget about the compensation. Rook g5 played. Black is trying to lift his rook over the 5th rank and to get it into the game, but too late. e4. White is taking full control over the center squares. Rook c8. Queen d2, start attacking. Rook g6, and just simply play knight d6, force black to exchange pieces and to get into the losing endgame. After bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, black is also forced to swap queens, which not leaving much counter chances. After black's try knight takes e4, intending maybe to use the position of white's king on c1, white instead capturing on g6 or capturing on e4 simply took the rook d7, took the bishop, and black had to resign. There's no any compensation anymore. The game is over. After knight takes c3 and bishop takes c3 and knight e5, I believe that Kirill Georgiev's opponent just missed that after move like rook d8, white is achieving decisive material advantage. Just, I would say, probably most simple continuation. After rook takes d8 and bishop takes e5, white is just having two bishops in open position, which much better than rook. And black decided not to continue to fight this game. Objectively, white is clearly winning. Indeed, even if black is not trying to create here any complications, once again, I would like to repeat, white is having extra pawn and no clear compensation for black. And I would like to finish our lesson with one more game where black successfully finished his attack on the king side when white just tried to make some mixed plan between what Garry Kasparov played and Kirill Georgiev. So after d4, d5, c4 and e6, knight c3, c5, c takes, check on a4, bishop d7, queen takes, e takes, queen takes, knight c6, knight f3, knight f6, queen d1, bishop c5, e3, queen e7, bishop e2, lone castling. So in that case, as we know, so white usually plays short castling, and after g5, what we studied, just to play b4. But in that game between Gohale and Nadanian from Singapore Masters Open Tournament 2006, white decided just to mix two plans and not to sacrifice a pawn on b4 for some reason, decided to play a3 first. After g4, knight d4, and after h5, black is already having quite good target. White's keen on h1. b4. White is not going to sacrifice a pawn anymore. So b4 pawn protected by pawn on a3. Indeed, this tempo is quite important. And this b4 move, when white is supported this pawn b4 by move a3, just tempo loss, tempo and important tempo loss for white. So black is having bishop d6 opportunity. And after b5, queen e5, immediately attacking the pawn on h2, so intending the checkmate. After g3, knight e7, so knight is coming close to the king side. At the same time, black is intending h4 to open up the h file. So funny enough that white in this position is lacking just exactly one tempo for organizing the great defending chances. So no time. Bishop d2, h4, so black is already here. White's king is in big trouble. Black is intending to capture on g3 and then to bring the queen on h5 or to sacrifice the rook on h2. Let's say in case of some move like queen b3, black is just simply capturing, and f take g will be met by rook takes h2 with the decisive checkmate attack with queen take g3. So once again, this game shows how dangerous to play slowly in the gambit lines. You always have to think about what your opponent is intending and try to stop his initiative, even with the counter sacrificing like we saw in the game of Garry Kasparov. After h4, f4. Instead of queen b3, white played f4, trying somehow to create block over the b8 h2 diagonal. Queen h5, black is once again intending the h take g3 and queen h2 checkmate. Bishop e1, king b8, so important to keep the king out of the c file. Queen b3 and bishop c5, very difficult for white to stop black's kingside attack. After g takes h4, bishop takes d4, e takes d4, and knight f5, black is intending just to capture on h4, finally opening the h file White's king in the big trouble. Cementing move like bishop g3 doesn't work here so much after d takes rook to e8. Black is intending knight takes d4 as well, knight takes h4 as well. Then knight comes maybe to f3. All white squares completely weak. Black is also intending to bring his rook to e3, destroying completely position. Let's say move like rook ad1. I believe that black already could, of course, could play something like knight e3, but I like also knight takes h1. I like also rook e3 opportunity. So black is having a lot of different moves. So what happened after rook d to e8? White already fed up about his bad position and decided to exchange at least some piece and played knight d5. Completely overlooked that black simply played answered with knight take g3, and white's knight on d5 is not protected anymore. So black is just winning, capturing this knight. After h take g3 and queen takes d5 or knight takes d5, black is having extra piece and completely winning position. But even without this blunder knight d5, black's position is much better. All his pieces in attack. White is having a lot of troubles with his king side, which is completely demolished already. So in that game, once again shows us how dangerous to play with white against the gambit lines. Even when we saw with white pieces playing quite strong, 2400 player, not solving all the problems with this opening line, which is quite complicated and quite sharp and of course playable. Look, a lot of very good players are still playing this Shara Gambit opening line. Okay, I would like to thank everybody for watching my course about the Shara Gambit, and follow me with my new lessons about the Gambit's guide. See you. Bye.